Welcome back to
the History and Humanities of the 1900s.
For this episode,
the year 1977.
1977 had some pretty significant historic events. On January 19, it snowed for the first time in Miami during a cold wave. Damage was most significant to agriculture as major losses occurred to citrus fruits and tender vegetables. Statewide agricultural damage from the cold wave totaled $350 million, and losses overall totaled to $2 billion. On January the 20th, the inauguration of U.S. President Jimmy Carter happened, and later that year, on September 7, U.S. President Jimmy Carter signed the Torrijos-Carter Treaty, which set in motion the process of handing over the Canal of Panama's control. Oh yeah, on July 13 of the year, the New York City blackout happened. Looting and vandalism were widespread, hitting 31 neighborhoods, including the most poor neighborhoods in the city. Possibly the hardest hit were Crown Heights, where 75 stores on a 5-block stretch were looted, and Bushwick, where arson was rampant with some 25 fires still burning the next morning.
Don't forget that Claes Oldenburg marries Kuj van Bruggen this year. Together, Oldenburg and van Bruggen produced 3 decades of monumental sculptures that van Bruggen would call large-scale projects. Also, Elvis Presley, an American musician and actor who is regarded as one of the most significant cultural icons of the 21st century, and was often referred to as the King of Rock and Roll, sadly passed away on August 16th.
Yeah, 1977 was a decent year. Star Wars was released. One of the world's largest pipelines, the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline, opened up on May 31st. The space shuttle had its first successful test flight. The Atari and the Apple II computer came out. These were pretty good, I guess. But you know what's better? Art. Why would anyone be more interested in these things when there are cubes? Or buildings? Or music? Or paintings? 1977 was a great year for art. People were putting baking pans into canvases. People were creating non-standardized, unreadable sheet music. You illiterate homunculus. Why are you not excited? Look at Donald Judd. He made boxes. And prisons. And chairs. He is most famous for this. It is a building in Marfa, Texas. It has some truly outrageous stuff in it, like boxes. The arrangement of these minimalist structures manipulates shadow and adds another layer to Judd's sculpture. And look at this furniture. Are you thinking about how uncomfortable it looks? If so, you are an uncultured heathen, unfit to gaze upon this art. These are not just chairs and tables. They are art. Look at the harsh, minimalistic angles. They uniquely occupy space, and maintain a pleasing aesthetic despite having little to no ornamentation. In 1977, he created a piece known as Untitled. Strangely enough, he created multiple pieces known as Untitled throughout his career. Why? I guess naming pieces wasn't his strong suit.
Well, okay then. Thank you very much for the insight, Mr. Ackerman. Since we got into our humanities and art mood, let's talk about one of, if not, the most influential British artists of all time, David Hockney. In 1977, he painted My Parents, one of his best portrait works based on, guess what? His parents. The painting was reference to the style of the common portraits from the French Revolution to depict emotions and symbolism. It is very visually pleasing and colorful, and piqued great interest to many who were just learning of his works. This painting was even voted as United Kingdom's most favorite painting in 2014. Only a couple of years later after he was voted the greatest British artist of all time. Inspired by famous artists like Picasso at a young age, Hockney pursued his interest in art with the support of his parents. Graduating at the Royal College of Art in London, Hockney developed his love for abstract expressionism and realism soon after, in Los Angeles, California, where he settled for most of his art career. There he produced works such as his most famous piece, A Bigger Splash, and American Collectors, his most famous portrait painting, which were both influenced by the environment and setting of Los Angeles itself. As time went on, Hockney became more interested in the use of technology in his artwork. Being a very versatile artist of many mediums though, he was able to master the art of photography significantly fast in the 1970s and 80s. Calling his photographs joiners, he created many collages such as Pure Blossom Highway 11, which grew popular very fast, especially with the younger people. Years later, technology became more and more developed, and the increased popularity of digital art ensued. Hockney found interest in this medium and started creating many digital artworks, mostly using the iPad and iPhone, like his piece Yosemite I. Ultimately, these are only little of what makes Hockney so great. His versatility and passion in his art has influenced many, even to the point where he got an offer for knighthood by the Queen herself, which he rejected. Well, anyways, now to Alex on music.
Artists like Hockney and Judd had a pretty good year in 1977, but it wasn't just artists that were contributing to the humanities. Karlheinz Stockhausen, an important creator and theoretician of electronic and serial music, had his fair share of contributions. He finished Sirius, a music theater composition that lasts 96 minutes, and it premiered on August 8th at the Aix en Provence Festival. Sirius has been described as a modern mystery play clothed as a science fiction story. This is also the year he began to compose the 7-opera cycle Leicht die 7 Tage der Woche. This translates to Light the 7 days of the week. The Leicht cycle deals with the traits associated in various historical traditions with each weekday. He didn't finish the cycle until 2003. Karlheinz Stockhausen was born on August 22nd, 1928 in Kerpen, Germany. He was widely acknowledged by critics as one of the most important but also controversial composers of the 20th and early 21st century. He strongly influenced avant-garde composers of the 1950s to the 80s and is known for his groundbreaking work in altere and serial composition, electronic music, and musical spatialization. Karlheinz Stockhausen, one of the leading figures in electronic music, has tended to combine electronic sounds with conventional musical instruments. Some of those famous works were Klavenstück 11, Sonatine for violin and piano, Contrapunct, and Number 11 Refrain. The system of musical notations that Stockhausen devised for Number 11 Refrain is as revolutionary as the music itself. The reason for this unusual system is because there is no universally agreed on system of writing down electronic composition, most of which exists only on tape. So yeah, he had a lot of crazy looking sheet music.
1977 was even a significant year for architects. A competition was held in Paris with all the most famous architects at the time entering for the prize of designing the Pompidou Center. Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers, both unknown at the time, wrecked everyone in that competition, and by 1977 the building of their design was opened, the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris. Renzo Piano's design showed the building as a collage, portraying the museum itself as movement. The thing that stands out the most is the exposed infrastructure, the skeleton of the building on the outside, beautifully displaying all the mechanical and structural systems to be understood, and to maximize the interior space without interruptions. The Centre Pompidou houses the Musée National d'Art Moderne, which is the largest modern art museum in all of Europe. Since 1977, it's integrated high-tech architecture and urbanism as a movement and spectacle. Just recently, the sister building, Centre Pompidou Metz, opened in Metz, France on May 12, 2010. Well, after Piano's success on the Pompidou, Piano went on to design things like the Auditorium Parco della Musica, a large music complex in Rome, which quickly became the most visited music facility in Europe, and the Maison Hermes store in Tokyo. Piano is also a cool type architect because of his unique skyscrapers, the New York Times building in Manhattan and the Shard in London, which is now the tallest building in the European Union. Piano's awards showcase all of his successes, winning the Erasmus Prize and Pritzker Architecture Prize, both for contributions to culture and humanity. Piano was also appointed as one of the 4 Senates for life in the Italian Senate by President Giorgio Napolitano.
Well, there you have it. History and Humanities of 1977. See you next time on History and Humanities of the 1900s.